Around the year 1000, high in the Peruvian Andes, a man lies on a woven blanket while another kneels over his skull holding a sharpened obsidian blade. Somewhere on the planet today, a stranger is pressing an ice pack to a headache and waiting for a painkiller to kick in. This man's remedy is different. It's about to put a hole directly into his skull. And here's the part almost nobody expects. There's a real chance he walks away from it. That single detail rewrites a common assumption. Ancient people are usually pictured as helpless against injury and illness, one infection away from the grave. But the bone itself tells a different story, and bone, it turns out, doesn't lie about who lived and who didn't. The evidence starts with a skull that traveled a long way to get noticed. In 1865, in the city of Cuzco, an American traveler named Ephraim George Squire was shown a skull from a nearby Inca burial ground. It had a rectangular hole cut into the top, roughly the size of a large postage stamp. Squire carried it to New York and presented it to the Academy of Medicine, arguing the hole wasn't damage, it was surgery. Most of the room didn't believe him. 2 years later, in Paris, the anatomist Paul Broca examined the same evidence and reached the opposite conclusion. The bone around the opening showed smooth, rounded regrowth. That kind of regrowth doesn't happen in a corpse. It only happens in someone whose body kept healing for months, maybe years, after the operation. Broca's verdict effectively founded an entire field of study, one built on a strange promise that a 19th century skull could prove a Bronze Age patient survived brain surgery. Here's where the obvious assumption falls apart. The instinct is to imagine ancient surgery as a coin flip, at best no anesthesia, no antibiotics, a blade of stone instead of steel. Surely that's a death sentence more often than not. Except the numbers say otherwise, and the clearest proof comes from Peru itself. In 2018, a team led by neurologist David Kushner at the University of Miami, working with bioarchaeologist John Verano of Tulane University and Ann Teitelbaum of the University of Arizona, examined more than 800 trepanned Peruvian skulls spanning nearly 2,000 years, published in the journal World Neurosurgery. In the earliest period they studied, starting around 400 BCE, mortality ran high. But by the time of the Inca Empire, in the century before European contact, mortality had dropped to somewhere between 17 and 25%. For comparison, cranial surgery during the American Civil War, with metal instruments, formal training, and a working theory of anatomy, killed between 46 and 56% of patients. Somehow, surgeons working with stone tools and no germ theory at all were outperforming battlefield doctors 400 years later. Turns out that gap wasn't luck. The skulls themselves record the learning curve. Later holes are smaller. Surgeons avoided blood vessel-heavy regions of the skull. Techniques shifted toward shallower cuts that stopped short of the brain's protective membrane, the dura. One skull recovered from the region shows 5 separate trepanation sites, 5 surgeries, on one person who kept surviving. But the story isn't uniformly triumphant, and that matters. In Turkey, at the Neolithic site of Çatalhöyük, researchers led by Professor Handan Üstündağ uncovered a skull roughly 8,500 years old, one of the oldest trepanation attempts on record, belonging to a man in his late teens. There's no rounding, no regrowth, no sign of healing at all. This is a case the field is honest about. The surgery came right at the edge of death, or possibly after it. Absence of evidence for healing isn't proof of intent to harm. It may simply mean the procedure was attempted as a last resort on someone already dying. Not every operation across 7,000 years of trepanation was a success story, and the field doesn't pretend otherwise. And the practice wasn't confined to one continent working in isolation. In Sudan, at a Neolithic settlement near the Nile called Khor Shambat, a team led by archaeologist Maciej Jordeczka found a skull roughly 7,000 years old showing the same signature, a deliberately made opening, on a person who lived into their 50s or 60s afterward. 2 unconnected populations, thousands of miles and thousands of years apart, independently discovered that opening the skull could sometimes save a life instead of ending one. So what actually ties Cuzco to Çatalhöyük, to Khor Shambat? Not a shared textbook, there wasn't one. The likeliest explanation researchers point to is empirical trial and error compounding across generations. Watch what killed the last patient. Adjust, try again. Smaller openings survive better than large ones. Shallower cuts survive better than deep ones. Head wounds that swell need somewhere for the pressure to go. None of that requires germ theory or a diagram of the brain. It only requires centuries of surgeons paying close attention to their own failures, which is, uncomfortably, close to how modern medicine still works. A man in the Andes lies back down on a woven blanket. The wound is packed, the bleeding slows, and somewhere nearby, someone waiting on a headache to pass has no idea how much that ancient patient's Stone Age doctor already understood about survival. How did ancient humans survive brain surgery? The Stone Age surgeons who beat Civil War doctors at their own game, long before anesthesia, antibiotics, or a single diagram of the brain, ancient surgeons were cutting holes into living skulls and their patients were walking away. This is the real archaeological record behind trepanation, the oldest surgery on Earth. What you'll discover: the 1865 skull that got laughed out of a New York medical academy until Paris proved it right. Why Inca surgeons had better survival odds than American Civil War doctors 400 years later. A 2018 study of 800+ skulls that mapped exactly how ancient technique improved over centuries. The 500-year-old Turkish skull that shows what failure looked like. How two civilizations, oceans apart, independently learned the same life-saving trick from the Andes to Anatolia to the Nile. The bone itself keeps the receipts, and it tells a far more competent story than primitive medicine usually gets credit for. Chapters 000, a hole in the skull, and a patient who lives 035, the skull that started a field of study. 210, the myth, ancient surgery meant almost certain death. 315, the numbers that prove otherwise. 440, when it didn't work. 535, an ocean away, the same discovery. 640, what actually made it work.